You're listening to the Sprues and Brews podcast, your weekly podcast looking at all things Warhammer. Hello and welcome to the Sprues and Brews podcast. My name is Dave and I'm joined once again by Matt.
Hello.
And Jay.
Hello.
We are on episode 87 now, guys.
We are indeed.
Getting old.
Getting old, yeah. Not too far off the big 100. So on this week's podcast, we're going to be talking about our top 3 games that we'd like to play. So there are loads of different gaming systems, not just Warhammer, but just games in general that, you know, we might not have played. So we decided this week to have a think and discuss what we'd really like to play. Maybe after lockdown's finished, maybe we can try out some new game systems. We're also going to be talking about what we'd like to see at this weekend's Warhammer 40,000 preview, which is at 2 o'clock on Saturday. It's purely going to be Warhammer 40k, nothing else. Apparently it's going to be awesome. I have no doubt it will be. But yeah, we're going to do a bit of speculation on what we think we might see. We're also going to have a little bit more of an extended hobby update later on in the podcast as well, where we're going to be talking about our projects coming out of lockdown, what we'd like to be working towards. And of course, we'll have all the community top 3 picks towards the end of the podcast as well. But before we get stuck into all of that, I think we should fill everybody in on what we've been doing in the hobby over the last 7 days. So Jay, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, cool. So I've actually got quite a lot done this last 7 days, which is good. I'm sort of in the painting mood at the moment. I've been working a bit more on my Harlequins, so I've been getting some of the base colours on those. I'm trying to batch paint them. Oh man, they're a lot harder to paint than Space Marines. I'm not talking about the diamonds. I've not even gone anywhere near the diamonds yet. It's just they're so much smaller, and unlike a Primaris Space Marine where you've got all those really nice flat panels with the edges that you can highlight up really smart, the Harlequins, they're basically just wearing like pajamas, so it's a bit tricky to paint them. But
you're a brave man, batch painting Harlequins.
I know.
Even I'd struggle with that.
It's the only way I'm going to get them done, I think. I mean, what's really motivating me to do them, though, is I've been watching a couple of battle reports with the Harlequins out of the new Psychic Awakening rules. They seem to have done really well out of the Psychic Awakening rules. All the new pivotal roles they've got, the new relics, the new stratagems. I know you were a bit upset, Dave, by the Death Watch, which had a similar treatment in White Dwarf. Definitely not on the Harlequins. I've been really, really excited to use some of these new rules. And in the battle reports I've been watching, they seem to have rejuvenated the Harlequins somewhat, so that's good.
I have to say, it's a nice, chunky Harlequin section in the White Dwarf. It is as much content as you'd get in a Psychic Awakening book, so really impressed with that.
Yeah, it is. The only thing you're sort of missing is the lore and the background, which I'm assuming will still feature in the actual Psychic Awakening book. You know, what the Harlequins have been up to, what role they've had to play in the Psychic Awakening storyline.
What role they had.
Yeah, no pun intended. I mean, it was obviously the Harlequin Shadowseer that appeared in all of the early videos talking to the was it the Inquisitor and the Adeptus Mechanicus?
It is. It's the new Plastic Inquisitor as well.
Yeah, so I suspect the Harlequins will have a big part to play, and also I might discuss this a bit further later on when we start talking about the 40k preview on Saturday. What part the Harlequins might play going forward in the 40k sort of setting. On top of that, I don't know where this sort of bug's come from. Perhaps it was speaking to Duncan last week on the podcast, but it's Adeptus Titanicus. I really want to get my Adeptus Titanicus Legio painted and some games. As soon as we come out of lockdown, I really want some games. So I've been putting some paint on my extra Reaver and my Cerestus Knights, the Lancers. So they're really, really nice models to paint. They're a bit messy to paint because you have to put all the washes on and things like that, but they are really, really smart models to paint. So yeah, that's what's been keeping me busy for the last 7 days.
Very nice. Yeah, I increasingly get tempted by Adeptus Titanicus, especially when I'm seeing your pictures of your models that you've both been painting. It's very tempting. For me this week, I've had a little bit of a quieter week on painting. I've literally just got all my painting in the last couple of days, really. But I have finished painting my second Dune Crawler. So I've now got 2 neutron lasers. Really enjoyed painting that. And I thought I'd finished painting my infiltrators, but I actually hadn't. So they are now fully painted and based. And that's it, really, actually, on the hobby front for me. I've got quite a bit undercoated, and I now have a week off as well. So I've got quite a lot that I want to get done whilst I'm off. So hopefully on next week's podcast, I'll be able to reel off a whole bunch of models that I've managed to get painted, including Caradrons, more Admech, maybe some Necromunda. Lots of goodies.
Yeah, that's a pretty good tally for this week, though, Dave. Considering you're working and whatnot, so I think you've made good progress.
Yeah, my infiltrators were like 80% done, so I only really
that last 20% can sometimes take 80% of your time.
Yeah. So I can't wait to play with the Admech again. Really looking forward to coming out of lockdown. Matt, what have you been painting this week?
So I've continued what I was working on last week, and I've actually finished my Necromunda Venator Bounty Hunter gang. So I think I'd done most of the gang last time we spoke, but since then I have painted 2 squats and a ratling, which were great fun to paint. I've really enjoyed doing these Necromunda gangers.
That only counts as 1.5 models, then.
It does. Yeah, they're only little ones. The Necromunda, the ratling comes with a cooking pot, so that's an extra model. But yeah, really, really enjoyed painting up these guys. So they're all done, and there's like a handful that I haven't got from the range that I think I really need to just get the models and paint them up because they're just really nice.
You've got a really, really, really cool technique for painting bolt guns as well that you shared with me. Bolt gun looks so impressive.
So Jay sends me a message. Oh, how did you paint that bolt gun? So I said, okay, so I painted it silver. Yeah. And then I painted it Agrax Airshade. Yep. That's it. Now,
it looks so cool.
Being a bit facetious there, I did add some highlights, but it was. I think because I painted the base colours majority with an airbrush, so they go on really, really kind of fine. So I think the washes kind of flow better and gives you that kind of like cell shaded effect when they gather in the edges. So really.
Some of the best models you painted. I think they're fantastic.
I can't wait to send them into the Underhive where they're going to die horrifically in their first game because they're painted. And then yesterday I started on my Aeronautica, so I built them. I primed them outside. It was warm, so they were kind of ready to go quite early. So I got the airbrush out and put some base colours on them. And I've just added the silver today, so I'm hoping by the weekend they should be done as well. It's only 6 or 7 planes, but they're really, really nice models.
Yeah, they are really cool. I like the whole range of Aeronautica, all the different factions so far. I think I've probably got a slight preference towards the Imperials, but I do also really like the Orcs as well. Those little planes are race. Getting quite a lot of love on Twitter as well. There's a lot of Aeronautica fans out there.
There are a lot of Aeronautica fans now. Now, previously, there's only been 2 factions. Who knows? In the coming weeks, we might have a third one in the mix.
Indeed. I think that segues quite nicely into this week's news. So we'll take a pause and come back with that. It wouldn't be the podcast without a segment where we delve into the latest news in the worlds of Warhammer. So what have we got this week, Matt?
Well, you say latest news. We've got news that is literally minutes into almost recording the podcast dropped. And I've got some good news and some bad news. What do you guys want first?
If you go with the... Oh, sorry, Jay.
No, you go, Dave.
I was going to say, let's start off with the bad news, and then it makes the good news feel a lot better.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. So the bad news is, in June, a number of Games Workshop items will be increasing in price. Now, it has been a while since we've seen a previous price adjustment. I think previously they increased the price of a pot of paint last time. Now, I think there's about 400 kits, I think they said, are increasing in prices. Looking at the website, it seems like it's most things in the £65, £40 and £35 price brackets are going up by a percentage. We don't know how much. They are increasing on the 1st of June, though. So if you do want any of those kits, and if you go to Warhammer Community, they've listed all the kits that are increasing. So if you say a £25 box is going up to $27.50, and kind of work the maths up for the other ones. That'll probably give you an idea of what kind of prices that they're going to be. So if you do want any of those kits, I'd recommend getting them sooner rather than later.
I mean, I suppose when you think about it, they have recently released a lot of really good box sets that are really, really good value for money. So yeah. I guess you can pick up the bulk of your army in those box sets and save a bit of cash, and that can go towards the extra you need for like your elite one-off units that aren't available in those big box sets, maybe.
That's it, and it kind of encourages you to get the start collecting boxes and the battle boxes. So yeah, it's never great when prices increase, but at least it isn't the entire range, and at least they've given us some warning. But we've got some good news, some really, really good news. The news that we have been waiting for what seems like years now. I think it's about 10 weeks, are we on?
Codex Imperial Agents.
Not quite.
Now. Is that what you're picking up?
Not quite. The Games Workshop factory is open. Obviously, in the UK, things have eased a little bit over the last few weeks and people are back to work. This includes Games Workshop HQ. So the factory is open again. They are churning out new stuff. And that means that we are very nearly time for us to get pre-orders again.
Excellent.
It's like a week on Saturday. So on the 30th of May, pre-orders will be returning and they will be released on the following week, on the 6th of June, so not long at all to wait. Now, presumably in this, there's going to be the Zote that had been previously teased back, a few weeks ago, a few months ago maybe. Now, on the artwork that they've used on Warhammer Community, they have shown off a Tau Barracuda, presumably from the new Aeronautica set, and the Archaeopter from the Adeptus Mechanicus range. So I think what they might do is bundle together a few weeks that may have been separate releases originally, just to catch up with the release schedule. So it's not guaranteed, but that's what it looks like. The Engine War and kits, Aeronautica with the Tau, and the Zote, all of which are really cool kits. So I think there's something for everyone there.
I can't believe I might be reading a copy of Engine War on my birthday. That's really cool.
On your birthday.
On my birthday.
That is, as divined by the Omnissiah himself. So yeah, that's really exciting. And the good news continues. So obviously, we're not been able to play a game of Warhammer and you're stuck in the house. I've just painted up a Necromunda gang. Dave, you're tempted to put some paint on your Necromunda figures. Well, over on Warhammer Community, they have released a solo play scenario where your gang has got to go and get a rampaging Ambot. Now, I'm sure he's not going to come quietly, so there might be some deaths involved, but I'm sure it'll be fine. They've also mentioned this would be a good kind of like mid-season battle in a campaign where maybe whoever wins it with the least casualties gets to add an Ambot to their team.
Good idea, yeah.
So, yeah, but that's fun. So I might play that and give my new guys a baptism of fire and then all die horrifically to an Ambot. We've also seen another kind of little snippet of new releases, and again, this is backed up by what we've just heard about pre-orders being back on the cards. The General's Handbook has been cited on a shipping manifest, both the Standard Edition and the Warlord Edition. So this is, it's no surprise to anyone. This comes out every year, but good to see that it's potentially in the next, month or two maybe. Traditionally, this includes the new updated battle plans, which are always really worth picking up because they keep the game kind of fluid and alive and keep it from getting old, don't they?
Yeah.
And they also have a lot of hobby content in there. So we've had Triumph and Treachery in the past. We've had loads of new, game modes. We've seen loads of cool stuff. So we don't know what's in this year's edition. Presumably they're going to keep the same format where the points are in a separate volume to save on the stuff that you've got to carry to the table with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure we'll probably see some more news of that on Warhammer Community soon. And then finally, we've got some really good news from Cubicle 7. Now, a week or two ago, Soulbound, the Age of Sigmar role-playing game, came out to quite a triumphant fanfare. I think it was the top-selling game on a number of sites. And yeah, I gave it a glowing review because it's a brilliant book. Cubicle 7 have announced what is coming for the next couple of years. So that's a super preview we've got here. So in Q3 2020, the starter set will be up for pre-order. So if you've played the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay starter set, which we had a campaign, didn't we, a few months ago?
Yeah.
Really high production values, really nice character sheets and a full campaign in there that essentially teaches you how to play the game via using a campaign rather than sitting there with a dry rule book. And they've got the same kind of product coming out for Soulbound. So there's a 48-page adventure to teach you the ropes. There's a 64-page supplement giving you some lore and fluff about a city. Includes character sheets, handouts to give to your players, and dice. So the fantasy roleplay one was excellent, so I'd really recommend picking that up. Shadows in the Mist is coming in Q3 2020, and that is the first kind of book campaign for Age of Sigmar set in Anvilgard. So, that should be interesting.
And I think it starts on an Arcanaut frigate as well.
Potentially. In Q4 2020, we've got a book that Jay will want, Champions of Order. This is the first supplement book for Soulbound and features a new race, the Lumineth Realm Lords.
Oh, man.
It also has supplementary rules for storm hosts, lodges, and glades, and has lots of new options for talents and spells. So it's basically Codex Lumineth, I suppose, for Soulbound, with a load of more supplementary kind of skills and stuff for your order party, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, I was looking through...
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I was looking through the Soulbound, and there's some really cool, interesting sort of classes you can play. There are rules to sort of make your own sort of archetype and things like that, but yeah, it'd be so cool to have like proper Lumineth rules, because I do want to play a Lumineth, to be fair.
Yeah,
I don't know if you picked that up.
Spells and talents that fit to them. So, by the time we've done our first campaign, I'm sure we could do a Lumineth one, Jay.
Yeah.
At the same time as well, Horrors of the Mortal Realms is coming out, which has got new monster profiles. So there's some in the main rule book, but we see this in a lot of role-playing games. The kind of supplementary books with loads of more profiles just means your games are more involved then, doesn't it? Yeah. There's a book that will also be appealing to Dave as well, Steam and Steel. So this is about vehicles and contraptions in the Mortal Realms and features player vehicles such as Arcanaut frigates.
Woohoo!
So this is definitely your Caradron themed one. So you could have a whole campaign where you have your own frigate and go adventuring through the Mortal Realms with all sorts of wacky contraptions. That is out in 2021. And then also in 2021, we've got Artifacts of Power, which has new spells, artifacts, and for the first time in Soulbound, endless spells. So yeah, it's really good to see they've got an absolutely load of stuff on the timeline for the game, which is, sometimes you worry that a new role-playing game comes out and it's not going to get supported. There's like 6 books there they've announced for the next year or so, which is really cool. That's
your incentive to pick up this book now and start playing it. It's going to be well supported for at least the next year or so.
And that's the thing, it keeps it fresh. You can play, with the stuff out the introduction book now, and then by the time you've done that first campaign, a few more books have come out for you to kind of add to your gaming system. So, yeah, looks really good. And then finally, as Dave has alluded to previously in the show, at 2:00 on Saturday, there is a big Warhammer 40,000 preview over on Warhammer TV and Warhammer Community. I believe they've said in the article it's a massive 40k focused. We don't know what's going to be in it. It's going to be crazy good, presumably. So I think, Dave, that's probably a good time to segue into the next section where we're going to discuss what we think we're going to see in this preview.
Can you believe we have yet another online preview this Saturday at 2:00 over on Warhammer TV? This is purely going to be focused on Warhammer 40,000. So no Age of Sigmar, Horus Heresy or anything like that. It's purely going to be 40k. So what, guys, could we potentially see being revealed on Saturday?
Well, I think there was a few people disappointed at the previous preview that there wasn't any kind of earth-shattering news. I mean, there was some really, really good news in those previews, but I think people were expecting, the kind of, we've mentioned it a few times, a new edition of Warhammer 40,000, even if it's a kind of stopgap edition of the game, that is what I kind of imagined we were going to see at Warhammer Fest. And obviously, Warhammer Fest didn't happen. And I think at the time, Games Workshop had no idea when we were coming out of lockdown, so they didn't want to kind of put too much information out there because then people could be waiting for 6 months for it to come out potentially.
Yeah.
But this time of year, traditionally, Games Workshop put out a big box set. Now, it could be, maybe, that it is actually still 8th edition, but a new starter box. But I think they would take the opportunity to just sand over a few of the rough edges that 40k's got. It's still an excellent game, but I think obviously we've seen Soul Wars come out since then, and they could definitely learn a few things from that, personally.
Well, it's funny, when I was researching, because both me and you, Matt, and potentially by this podcast has gone out, Jay might have a post on Sprues and Brews as well. But when I was doing some research, I didn't realise it's been 3 years since the last big box set, Dark Imperium.
Yeah, I mean, editions have ranged from 3 years to 5 years. Obviously, people probably rather than be every 5 years. I think it's a bit different now that back in the day, whenever they brought a new edition, it was a new kind of game engine, let's call it, where more recently it's been revisions on the same game. So existing codexes and battle tomes can still be used. And I think that's what people really objected to in a new edition, that they're going to buy their whole kind of library again. Now, presumably we will get new codexes for all the factions, but at least you can still use your existing army until they get a new book.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we'll see, if we do get a new version of the game, I think it'll just be the core game mechanics that might be slightly tweaked. So, like you say, your actual codex is fine. Your stratagems are fine. Your artifacts are fine. You might just find, maybe, I don't know, I'll throw this out there, maybe the character targeting rules may slightly change or something like that.
Yeah.
And then eventually, obviously, the books will get updated, as they always will do. But there's not going to be this sudden big rush to get them all out and get everybody's books up to date.
Yeah, and Games Workshop have been really good of late, by putting out day one FAQs.
Yeah, I mean, rules is one thing, but I think I'm more excited about the background, the lore we're going to see, the development of the 40k storyline, because I just get the impression something big is on the horizon here.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the teaser trailer, they alluded to the Silent King. I don't think they outright said it was the Silent King, but it was the Silent King, wasn't it? Who, I think lore-wise, the Necronitar wanted eternal life. They're your kind of ancient Egyptian analog in the 40k universe, and they, super high-tech advanced, but the only thing that let them down was the fact that they had frail mortal bodies that die. A god came to them, disguised as one of their ancient animal-headed gods. Turns out he was the deceiver, and he's not a very nice chap. And essentially talked the Silent King, which is difficult considering he doesn't speak, into giving up their souls and in getting these mechanical bodies. Obviously, at the time it seemed like a great idea. Afterwards, he realised that he'd sold the soul of his entire race, but it's fine. They've got awesome robot bodies that repair now, so that's pretty cool. And he kind of betrayed the Catan and imprisoned shards of them. Now, I don't think all of them were destroyed, were they, Jay? I think some of them did manage to escape, and there's certainly one hidden on Mars.
On Mars, I was going to say on Mars, yeah. There's the Outsider and the Dragon, isn't there? The two Cetan that are missing.
Yeah, so he then I think scarpered because the galaxy was about to get consumed by gribbly Tyranids, and I don't think we've seen him since, have we?
I believe he's appeared in some stories, most notably fighting the Tyranids, actually. So yeah, he went into the void between galaxies, and that's where he encountered the Nids. And he realised, well, hang on a second, the galaxy is supposed to be mine in a few thousand years. If I can't come back to it, and the Tyranids have, eaten everything. So then he comes back into the galaxy then, and there's a story of him forming an alliance with Dante of the Blood Angels to fight the Tyranids, I believe. It was in the Blood Angels Codex, I think that story first appeared. So I think he has been sort of a little bit active in the 40k setting recently, but not too much. Obviously, his grand intention, I think, was to rule the entire galaxy.
He does, and there's a certain fella sat on the throne on Terra that might object to that.
Might not have much choice. I mean, by all accounts, the Silent King was a formidable foe. Beyond even the Eldari, who were young when the Silent King was old. They fear him. I think there's only a few of the Eldar who actually remember the threat the Necrons once were to the galaxy. They were the Elatic, the Rangers.
Yeah.
So I mean, if this Silent King is coming back, I can see him, rivaling the Emperor in power and ability. Really, it would be good to see that. It would be good to see. I mean, the Emperor okay, we've been beset by chaos. We've had the 13 Black Crusades, but terror hasn't ever really been threatened. I think in the Dark Imperium storyline, there was a battle on Terra, where Gilliman and the Grey Knights arrived to save the day. But other than that, really, Terra sort of existed as the strong point of humanity's power in the galaxy for the last 10,000 years. It would be really cool to see that dynamic shift now, and not necessarily the main advocacy not being chaos, but being some Xenos faction.
The Xenos have never managed to put a real threat on Terra recently, have they? Not as far as I can remember in any kind of mainline lore.
Didn't the Necrons come close? Didn't they fly some cruisers into the solar system?
They were mapping the I can't remember what it's called, the area on Mars where the dragon supposedly
the Noctis Labyrinth or whatever.
The Noctis Labyrinth. So there is precedent for it, and obviously the relationship between the Adeptus Mechanicus and Terra is that the Adeptus Mechanicus see the Emperor as the Omnissiah. Now, if something happened where actually another entity appears that could be the Omnissiah, then that could change the relationship between Mars and Earth, and there's a very close neighbour with a lot of dangerous weaponry that could be a threat to Terra as well.
That would be really cool. That would bring the war back home, wouldn't it? I think if any listeners are interested in that sort of bit of background there, especially about the dragon and the Omnissiah, I recommend the Mechanicum Horus Heresy book. So it's set during the 30,000 Warhammer 30k. However, there's a good story there about this entity that's asleep underneath Mars and the different factions of the Mechanicum and what it could mean, this big secret. So.
Yeah, from what we've seen so far, that's where I think this plot thread's going, especially with the seeing Mechanicus releases recently. We've obviously got Necron kits coming out, which, if this is a new starter box, I'd put money on this being... We got a teaser trailer for Pariah, which features the Necrons, led by their awesome new model, versus a weird force, really. An Inquisitor, some Sisters of Battle, and some Space Marines. Ultramarines, I think they are, on the trailer. Yeah. So could we see, something like this, a box that'll appeal to multiple collectors rather than just Space Marines in the box? Because a lot of people have started Sisters of Battle's armies. I know you've been tempted to do Sisters of Battle, so if they were in a starter box, even if it was just a squad or two, you'd probably be tempted to pick this up, Jay.
Well, I mean, that box there, yeah, I've got some Sisters on sprues here that I'm saving for the end of the year as a hobby project. If this was a starter box with Marines, Sisters, and Necrons, all three of those factions are appealing to me right now. So yeah, it would be a good box to grab. I mean, I think that's probably what we'll see in the starter box, to be honest. But back to the developments for the background and the lore. If the Necrons are now going to be this big threat, I think we might possibly see some return of the old ones as well, maybe as a counterweight to that. I mean, really, the old ones sort of dominated the galaxy, and it was when the Necrontyr became the Necron and allied with the Citan that they were able to overthrow the old ones, even though the old ones spawned all these younger races like the Orcs and the Eldar to fight them off. But really, I think mankind might need some allies against the Necrons myself.
Well, yeah, and I do wonder if we've got, old ones, or at least, children of the old ones, could this be time for the Exodites to maybe make a return?
I mean, the Exodites probably do remember the threat the Necrons posed, to be fair, because they sort of fled to the far reaches of the galaxy just prior to the fall of the Eldar. Obviously, the fall of the Eldar happened thousands and thousands and thousands of years after the War in Heaven, which was when the Necrons sort of won and then went to sleep. Bit tired after all the fighting.
They're probably closer to the Eldar that were around during the War in Heavens.
Yes, I think you're right. Yeah, pre-fall Eldar, definitely. And I mean, we've seen a few rumor engines, I think, have they all been solved now? I think we've seen a few rumor engines which could be Exodite. Was that Dan? Oh no, he was the Chaos in the end, was he? The Chaos.
Yeah. There's definitely stuff that could. I mean, there's again, they've been mentioned in the Psychic Awakening series as well, which is unusual for Games Workshop to mention factions that they've got no intention of creating models for.
No. And that's it. I mean, you go back a few years, you'd probably think Exodites are never coming back out again. But then we've had Genestealer Cults, we've had Harlequins, we've had Sisters of Battle, we've had Adeptus Mechanicus. Why not Exodite Eldar now?
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Dinosaurs versus robots.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
This all sounds very perilous for mankind. And I'd hate to be that, that guy who probably sounds like a bit of a broken record. But does this not sound to you guys like another Primarch needs to come back to try and sort all this mess out?
Well, I don't think it's perilous just for mankind. I think it's perilous for all of the races of the galaxy, really. But yes, Gilliman could probably do with some help.
Yeah,
I mean, sorry, Matt.
Go on.
All I was going to say was, I don't know who would be the one to come back if we did see another Primarch come back. I mean, a lot of people seem to think that the Lion, L. Johnson, will probably be the next loyalist Primarch to return. But I'm sure I read something not all that long ago that the Khan is actually featuring quite a lot in the lore at the moment. I don't know if that's true. Matt, with you currently having an interest in the White Scars?
I don't know what the Khan's current status is. Obviously, Dawn's dead. The hand as a relic.
Well, that's all they've got of Dawn. Right? There's conflicting stories that Dawn might still be alive and they only recovered his hand, which means the rest of his body's out there somewhere. Khan, I believe, is held captive. Well, you say held captive. He's currently in Comora, I think, fighting in the gladiatorial arenas for the Drukhari.
He'll be having a whale of a time there.
Well, this is what I think. My suspicions tell me that he's not actually being held captive. He's letting them hold him captive for a bit. I would love to see the Khan come back. And I think as well, there's that blurry picture of a land speeder and bikes. I mean, that would be a good Primarch to bring back with that Ranger Space Marine model.
Well, this is it. Imagine this is it. The Khan is the only model we haven't seen for Heresy. Now, if he had a 40k model, presumably it'd still be on his jet bike as well, and it could be a dual-purpose kit.
Yep.
And I know this doesn't really mean anything at all. I'm just literally just as it came to me. What the first two supplement books we got for the Adeptus Astartes was the Ultramarines and the White Scars.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously the Lion is in status on the Rock, and Russ is, I don't know, chasing people in the warp at the minute, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Russ is an interesting one as well, because there was a short story not so long ago, just last year, about the two spears. The spear that Constantine Valdor wields into battle, or did, before Constantine Valdor mysteriously disappeared with all of his armor and equipment, and the spear that Russ was given by the Emperor as well. And in the short story, there was quite a lot of significance played on these two spears, and they had a part to play in the future. Maybe Russ comes back with this spear.
That'd be cool. Now, a lot of this, Games which probably teed up for, 10th, 11th and 12th edition. It's hard to predict what kind of threads. I'd like to see Angron and Fulgrim, but do they fit with this kind of Necron arc we've got at the minute? Maybe. They might have multiple story threads that we see at the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So model-wise, is there anything that you guys would really like to see on Saturday?
For me, I would like to see some more. I know a lot of people probably don't want to see more Primaris, but I would really like to see the Primaris fleshed out. You've mentioned, Matt, obviously bikers. I'd like to see maybe a Terminator equivalent, something with real close combat clout. Because at the moment we've only really got the Reavers and the aggressors to an extent, but they're more of a firebase, aren't they? They're more shooty than punching things. So that's what I'd like to see.
I mean, realistically, Games Workshop can only put out so many kits at a time. So it is new editions, new codex is where we tend to get these kits. So they're the kind of obvious gaps in the range so far. And then I think we're at a stage where, a lot of the tactical marine equivalent stuff's now got a Primaris analog, which would be really cool.
Yeah.
Aside from obviously your jump pack guys, Jay, I know you're really keen to see something more akin to Assault Marines.
Well, to put into my Blood Angels army, definitely. we've got that blurry image, haven't they, was leaked, which definitely has some sort of land speeder looking thing in it, and the bikes. So I think if I was to put any money down, it would be that we would see those 2 units, and maybe some bike lieutenant as well. Whether we see the jump pack units in this release, I don't know. Possibly. Yeah, it would be nice if we did. I mean, as excited as I am to see the primary stuff, I think I'm more excited to see this Silent King, what the Necrons are getting. I mean, just because we know what a Primaris looks like, I can sort of imagine what a Primaris on a bike's going to look like. But what's coming for the Xenos? I mean, this reimagined Pariah, the Pariah's unit. I mean, they were pretty good models 20 years ago, but they're going to look incredible now, especially based on what that Necron character looks like.
Yeah, well, in the trailer now, again, we've said this before. A lot of times, the artwork does kind of imply the models. We saw the same with the Sons of Behemat. And in the trailer, we've got the Silent King in a massive like Egyptian style boat. If that is a model, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And then also some really kind of chunky looking muscular Necrons, because I'm sure Pariahs had human souls in them. I forget on the lore, but there was definitely something weird about them.
Yeah, they were like I'm not sure if they were half human, half, weren't
they? Yeah. And then the flayed ones are a really old metal kit. Now the plastic Necron Warrior frame is really, really old now. And I think it's probably the only Necron kit that still has those transparent green rods in it, which all the other kits they've got rid of because, if you want them anything other than green, it's going to be a bit difficult to do. So could we see a new Warrior kit with optional kind of like, if you think Terminator, with all this synthetic skin coming off to represent flayed ones?
Yeah, possibly. I'd like to see new Destroyers, because the Destroyer models are quite cool. They were from 3rd edition, and I really love the idea of Destroyers, but I'm not a big fan of the models, even the heavy Destroyers with the big heavy ghost cannons. When you compare them to like the Immortals, the Triac Stalkers and things like that, I think the Destroyers look a bit old now. New Destroyers, new flayed ones, new Pariahs, the Silent King.
That's a range there, isn't it? If you think with the Destroyers, they could eat a lot of the 3 model boxes have got multiple builds in them. So the Mega Knobs have an option of building a big mech. So you could have a Destroyer kit, which builds Destroyers, heavy Destroyers, and then optionally build one as a Destroyer Lord.
I think beyond to a winner there. I didn't. When you guys were talking then, I was thinking about the Necron Warriors, and they really are one-dimensional, aren't they? Like they're all in exactly the same pose. And you look at kits now being dynamic.
Yeah, you're sort of right, but I think the old Necron Warriors have a bit of a charm to them, because I mean these are your mindless. These guys are the Necron tier that lost the most during the transference. They've got pretty much no recollection or will left in them at all. Where you go further up the sort of hierarchy of the Necrons, all the way up to Lords, where they keep more and more of their personality.
Yeah.
So I quite like the look of like big blobs of these sort of like hunched over Necrons marching forwards. They look. I don't know. I quite like them. Yeah, I think, but it's subjective, isn't it? To each their own. Different people like different models. So.
Yeah, and again, if it is a new starter box with a bespoke frame, you could have some updated Necrons on there without necessarily replacing the current kit.
Yeah, I'd like to see some like damaged Necrons, like in the process of self-repairing or, crawling along the floor, just as little extras on the sprue.
Yeah, that'd be cool. A damage marker to represent the units that you need to roll for repairing.
Cool. Yeah, I think that all sounds really awesome. Is there any other races you think we could potentially see stuff for on Saturday?
Yeah, Squats. Well, I wasn't going to say them, but possibly. Do you think that's a possibility? Really?
No, I don't think so. It's just me being silly, but I think, I think we might have seen it at some point, but not during this wave. I don't think.
I think if Squats were coming, I think they would be a similar vein to the Sisters of Battle, where they'd tell us they're coming in a year and a half's time or 2 years' time. Yeah. Every couple of months, we'll show you some pictures of them. I think that's how they'll handle the Squats, following the same model as Sisters of Battle.
I think the problem with the Squats, and it's always been the problem with Squats, is that they step on the toes of the Imperial Guard for your kind of mass infantry force with tanks and stuff, and they also step on the toes a bit of the Tower with your super high-tech weaponry and stuff. What makes them kind of a unique niche, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think we're probably more likely to see something for the Astra Militarum and the Imperial Guard on Saturday. Maybe even it's just a hint of a revisit to the foot troops of the Imperium.
Yeah, I think that could be quite likely, Dave. Yeah.
I know you've really liked the idea of Catagens maybe coming back in a big way, Matt. Following on from all these special models we're getting, the Colonel, the female Catagen. Caddy is obviously not really around anymore, and those models are really old. So instead of bringing back another uniformed army like the Cadians, doing something different like the Jungle Fighters of Catagen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. I'd love to see like plastic Death Corps Krieg, but that is a whole new range they need to sculpt. Where with the Catagens, they have got a perfectly usable command sprue and a heavy weapon sprue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right there. With just a couple of boxes for the Necrons, a couple of boxes for the Catagens, you've basically revitalised both those ranges.
Yeah.
Almost like two new armies. I think I'd like to see something for the Eldar. They're one of the main factions in the galaxy. There's special significance between the Eldar and the Necrons, so they would tie into that storyline quite well. And recently the Necrons have had a lot of love in the form of the Inari, and I'd like to see that developed a little bit more. Currently, you have to borrow all of your units from the other Eldar factions, and we were talking the other day, Matt, about perhaps a unit or two of these like Revenant type Eldar.
Their equivalent of aspect warriors and their equivalent of their main kind of military force would be interesting to see, I think.
Yeah, an evolution of the Eldar. I mean, a lot of the old Eldar, Craftworld Eldar range especially, not so much the Dark Eldar, that range, I think that range has probably got about 30 more years in it, to be fair, it's that good.
Yeah.
But the Craftworld Eldar, a lot of the aesthetic is sort of spread across quite a large time period. So you've got like the plastic Eldar Guardians now, which when you compare them to the Primaris Space Marines and Genestealer cults even, they look tired now. The Aspect Warriors, okay, they had the Harling Banshees that were redone recently, but that was it. You've still got all of your Dark Reapers, Swooping Hawks, Warp Spiders, man. I mean, the Wraith part of the Eldar army looks probably better than the rest of it, to be fair. The Wraith Guard and Wraith Lords and Wraith Knights, they look quite smart. Even the tanks, the Grav tanks. I mean, I love the Fire Prisms and the Falcons, but they are old kits now. So maybe an evolution of the Eldar, and using the Inari as like a sort of catalyst for that would be good.
Awesome.
Excellent. Yeah, there's lots of things we could speculate all night, couldn't we? Of what we'd like to see. But luckily, we don't have to wait very long because it is this weekend. So you may have even seen the preview by the time you listen to this podcast. So you might be thinking, what a bunch of nonsense those guys are talking about. Or
did they have inside information?
Everything they said came out to be true.
This is it. I'll be eagerly awaiting Codex Squats to go up for pre-order in a couple of weeks' time.
If it goes up before the Luminef, I will not be happy.
Fantastic. Right, well, I think that leads us quite nicely onto our next segment, so we'll take another pause and come right back. Okay, so we are currently still in lockdown, but we can't help but think to a little bit into the future about what we'd like to get cracking project-wise when the lockdown does finally come to an end, what we'd like to get our teeth into next. Some of this could change after Saturday, depending on what is revealed. But before we'd take this moment on this podcast to talk about things that we're currently doing in projects we're slowly moving on to. Matt, do you want to start us off?
So I've been awaiting the arrival of the Sons of Bahamut. Now, as soon as Forge World is open, I really want a Bone Grinder Giant because I really, really enjoyed painting the 3 Ael'Gazla Gargants that I did. And I suppose the benefit of the Sons of Bahamut, there's not many models in the army. So, if I can try and get one of each of the new ones and the Bone Grinder and then see how they fit into an army, that's quite a quick army, relatively.
Mm-hmm.
And then So we've been waiting. We've been meaning to do a big campaign, haven't we? And we've been waiting on Jay to get his elves for what seems like years now. Jay.
Yeah, I can't remember when did we first see the elves? Was it before Christmas?
I believe it was. Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
So I've got a Bone Reapers army that we're going to do as part of that kind of narrative campaign. So I've been desperate to get some paint on these, but I've just been holding off just because I don't want to get the army finished before Jay's got his first box of elves, because that wouldn't be very fair. We've been talking of doing some Horus Heresy as well, kind of a traitor force and a loyalist force each, and I picked up a few kits for my White Scars, but I've kind of stalled a little bit because we have got this big question mark on the horizon of new Primaris bikes, which, in my opinion, would look so much cooler than the old, slightly rubbish-looking plastic bikes that you can get at the minute. Mm-hmm. And that way I can then do a Heresy army all mounted on bikes, but then also be able to use the models in 40k as well. So from a Heresy project, I'm kind of stalling at the minute, waiting until Saturday to see if there is anything coming out that is going to change what I'm going to do there. Mm-hmm. I'm also tempted to do a Sons of Horus force. Now, I've been looking at a lot of the Chaos Space Marine range because my army's going to be built around the Siege of Terror. They're fairly chaotic by now, so a lot of the Chaos Space Marine kits I can use. I was looking at the Chaos Space Marines to use as Reavers, but I was having a bit of a look, and you can give them all power swords and jump packs. So I'm thinking actually the Talons box might be a better choice for them. Yeah, they'll be slightly bulkier. They can all take power weapons and chain swords, and they look quite evil. And then have the Horus Heresy Space Marine armors as my tactical blobs, and then maybe use the Chaos Terminators as my Justica Terminators. Throw in Abaddon and Horus, and that's pretty much an army then. And a lot of it used with reasonable plastic kits rather than the expensive Forge World pieces.
Yeah, sounds like we'll just save your Forge Worlds like some of your upgrades and your big characters.
Yeah, so I think that'd look quite good together on the table as well in the kind of sea green Sons of Horus colour scheme. And again, I could use them as Chaos Space Marines in 40k then as well.
Yeah, pick up the Add-in plastic kit.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots I can play with there. But if Necrons get an awesome new range, I think I'd have to jump on the Necron hype train.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
So I'm just holding fire and ordering anything until I know what's coming.
Yeah, sounds like a good plan. Some really cool projects, Sam. I can't wait to see what you're going to do with your Giants.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's going to be
I've got a spare Archnaut ship, so I might have to steal that conversion somebody did of a giant pulling the ship out of the air.
Nice. So, obviously, you've got the Luminef, which you're very much looking forward to, Jay.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do them or not, to be honest. No, I'm definitely doing them.
I think we're only talking a couple of weeks now until they go up for pre-order. I think it's going to be very, very soon.
Yeah, I think if it's not this week, it'll probably be the week after that. That's what I hope anyway. So, yeah, that'd be cool. So, yeah, Luminef, obviously, I can't wait to get started on those. And I think, to be fair, when the Luminef come, they will probably monopolise a lot of my hobby time while I get them built and painted, because I'm really excited to start using those and painting those. The Horus Heresy as well, I'm very interested in getting an army ready for that. So I've finished my Dark Angels Terminators, which I'm going to use as my traitor force. And then the Blood Angels, of course, which are... The Blood Angels are a weird project because there's going to be quite a few conversions in the Blood... Well, depending on what we see. If we see some jump pack infantry on Saturday, then that might change things a little bit. But otherwise, it's going to be quite a lot of conversions because I like the larger scale of the Primaris Marines compared to the older Tactical Marines. So the idea there is that I can use them as... Blood Angels in 30k and 40k. But yeah, it's also going to be interesting to see what we see on Saturday. I mean, at my Harlequins as well, I really want to get my Harlequins ready for the next Purple Sparkle Unicorns tournament, because I really want to take the Harlequins to that tournament. But Yeah, like Matt, I think if we see some nice Necrons, and I think Necrons are such a cool army because it's quite a relatively easy colour scheme. You can probably get them batch painted up quite quickly. If we see a really smart Silent King model and some really cool pariahs, then it's almost guaranteed I'll be picking up some Necrons as well. Especially after the last Purple Sparkly Unicorns, where they absolutely obliterate me.
Am I going to be the only one of
with Necrons, have you?
No.
Am I going to be the only one of this group that doesn't pick up a new Necron army when all this all kicks off?
We'll assimilate you.
Resistance is futile.
I must be honest. I do like the idea of a Necron army, but I don't know if I would select them straight away.
Necrons versus Admech would look good in some battle reports, Dave.
It would. Yeah, it would. That's very true. For me, I mean, obviously I've got my current projects, but looking to the future, you mentioned Horus Heresy. I'm really looking forward to making some traction on my Imperial Fist army in view to using them in 40k and the Horus Heresy. I'm probably the way I want to build the list is probably more towards the 40k side, but I do hope that they'll still look and feel right playing Horus Heresy as well. The only reason I've not really gone full blown into them yet is because I want to finish off my Admech, and obviously I've got Engine War on the horizon. But yeah, I can see in the next few months, especially again, we talk about Saturday, whatever we see on Saturday, when we will probably see new Primera stuff. That's probably going to even further make an incentive for me to crack on with those.
The good thing with proxy and Heresy models with Primaris Marines is that Primaris Marines build their squads in the same way as Heresy forces. So every model in the squad has a bolter, and you have your heavy support squad where they've all got the plasma weapons. So take 10 intercessors with bolters. You could easily use that as a 30k tactical squad.
Yeah, which I really like the idea of. For the traitor side of things, I really like the idea of building up an Alpha Legion army, and I would like to at some point in the future. But I think because there's so much other stuff that is craving my money, I'm probably going to instead look to either bolster my already large Thousand Suns Horus Heresy army, or carry on painting my Death Guard, which I mentioned on last week's show when we had Duncan on. I actually really like the way I paint Death Guard. They're really nice to paint, and I think it's probably one of the best looking armies I've painted, and I don't really use them, which is a shame. So I do like the idea of maybe going back to them, and I've got loads of Death Guard sprues from the Conquest magazine series that I've not even built yet, so that's another good reason really to maybe go back to Death Guard a little bit. And then obviously Age of Sigmar wise, I've got quite a lot of Slaanesh models now. Some built, some not built, all ready for when you get your Elves, Jay. We start our little bit of a narrative campaign. I've even written up some lore and stuff, which I've kept to myself for now, about my sort of Slaanesh army. I've wanted a Chaos army for a very long time, so it's going to be great to finally start painting those and having some games with those. So yeah, I'm just as keen for you to get your Elves, Jay, as you are. So yeah, aside from that, I mean, I would also like to maybe dabble into some Titanicus, and probably more so Aeronautica. Luckily, like you both said, you don't need much for either to have what are they called in Titanicus? A maniple.
A maniple. So if you go down the line of the Adeptus Titanicus starter box, for £72, I think Elements sell it for, you get 2 Reaver Titans, 2 Warhound Titans, 2 Thrastus Knights, the full rule book, and all the tokens and templates and terminals. I think that's a bargain of a price, because you can really, you've been working out some lists the other day. That's pretty much an army in a box.
Yeah. I think you were looking at army list building, weren't you, Jay? And that seemed to be pretty much a maniple. So maybe I should dabble a little bit into those. But I think Slaanesh and Imperial Fists are my main projects coming out of lockdown, I think. At the moment, anyway. Who knows what will happen after Saturday. So, yeah, I think we've got an exciting few months ahead. We don't know when we might be starting these projects, hopefully very soon. But for now, we're going to take a slight pause and we'll come back with this week's Top 3. So for this week's Top 3, we decided to look at the top 3 games that we'd like to play. Now, these don't necessarily need to be Warhammer related. We might throw in a couple of non-Games Workshop IPs in this. But yeah, we thought it makes a little bit of a change to talk about stuff that we haven't yet played. So Matt, do you want to start us off with your third choice?
So my third choice is something I've been building over the last few days, and that is Aeronautica Imperialis. It looks like a really, really fun system. I've read up on all the rules and built the planes, but not had a game yet. It's really cool. You have got a number of different orders, maneuvers that you can give your planes, and you put those down in secret. You've also got to manage your altitude and velocity, and make sure that you've got enough juice to make sure your plane gets through the whole maneuver. So very kind of cat and mouse and trying to tail people, and it looks a really, really good system. I really wish I could have a game with you right now, Dave, but unfortunately we can't. It's another Games Workshop have done a lot of these recently where you don't need to spend £200 on an army, a couple of boxes, and you've got enough models to play it.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to giving it a go. And hopefully you'll be able to get your Tau fleet next week, Jay.
Well, number one choice on my top 3 was Aeronautica with a Tau fleet. So yes, I am looking forward to playing this game also.
So was that your third choice?
That was my third choice, yeah, number 3 on my top 3, yeah, sorry.
Excellent. It's all right. My third choice isn't actually Warhammer related.
Oh.
So my third choice is something I've had for a while. I told you a lie. This particular version is Warhammer related. But it's Munchkin, the card game Munchkin. I don't know if either of you two have played it.
Yeah, I've played vanilla Munchkin, but certainly not the 40k version.
I've never played it. I never played it at all. And I got given the Warhammer version, which was all signed and everything by the designers for my birthday. And I really, really want to play it because I think it could be a lot of fun. I've watched videos of how you play it because it's kind of a bizarre mechanic, isn't it? So I had to watch a video and it all kind of clicked together then how it works. So definitely want to give you guys a game of this at some point. That'd be really cool. Matt, what is your second choice?
So my second choice, again, isn't a Games Workshop one. And this is a game by Modiphius, who have done Fallout, they've done Star Wars, and it's based on one of my favourite video game series ever. And this is The Elder Scrolls Call to Arms. So this is an interesting miniatures game. It's got more of a narrative weight to it. You can do kind of dungeon crawls and you can have a one-on-one battle, but there's also AI-controlled monsters and stuff that will turn up during the events, and radiant quests that a pack of cards will generate that you get additional experience for completing, and then gear that you can give to your guys. It looks like it's a nice blend of board game and miniatures game, then with all that kind of Elder Scrolls lore in there as well. So you've got the full leveling tree that you'd get in an Elder Scrolls game. So it looks really, really in depth. I think it comes out at June, I want to say. So I've ordered this and looking forward to getting it, especially since you can play it single player again with the card decks controlling all the adversaries.
That's interesting. Yeah, solo, cool.
What is your second choice, Jay?
My second choice is a game of the Soulbound RPG. I'm really excited to play this game. Really excited. We've had the PDF. Was it like 300, 400 pages worth of rules? Really cool artwork, really cool bits of story and lore. Looks like there's lots of interesting sort of abilities, skills, powers, and a really, really simple sort of a dice mechanic to actually play the game and resolve all the encounters and combats and things.
I think that's one of the biggest strengths. Sometimes RPGs and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay is guilty of it a little bit, can complicate things with really kind of complex mechanics, to let you do the various gradients and things that you do during the game, where Soulbound kind of boils it down to, well, is it something mental, is it something strength based, and then a really easy way of building the dice pool to do that.
Yeah, it's that really cool way of playing a game. In addition to the fact that we're each starting with characters that are heroes, a Kernoth hunter with a great bow and great sword, a Stormcast incanter. So straight from the get go, you feel like you're a powerful character, a really cool setting, really cool streamlined way to play. I'm just really excited about this in a way that I've not been excited about other D&D type games. And I enjoy the D&D games, but you start off as like a noble or a shopkeeper or something like that, and slowly develop your character, which is fun. But this just seems a bit refreshing for a change. You're straight in, landing on your feet, with your weapons, your combat abilities, your spells, even. So
I suppose to use the World of Warcraft equivalent, with Soulbound, you're logging in with your level 100 character, where at other games you've got your level 1 guy who's doing fetch quests.
Yeah.
I'm with Jay. I do like D&D in RPGs, but there's something about what I've read of Soulbound so far that really gets me excited to give that a go. And I can't wait for us to do even if it's an online session, a game of this. I'm really looking forward to it. My second choice is Adeptus Titanicus, because you guys go on about it so much that I'm desperate to have a game of it to see what the fuss is about. I do like the models. I would like to maybe pick them up in the future. But I think what will really push me over the edge is actually taking part in one of the games or watching you two guys play a game and see how it goes from there. But enough people go on about it that there must be something good. I'm obviously missing out.
I've only had one game of it. My brother's had one game of it, and off the back of that game, my brother got his entire Legion painted up. That's how much Lee enjoyed it. And I've really got the itch at the moment to play a few games of it, to be fair.
Cool. So I think I'll have to get on the ball with that. We're around to our top choices. So what's your top choice, Matt?
Well, my top choice came out about a year ago now, maybe just under, and that is Warcry. It looks an absolutely brilliant game. I've read all the rules. I love the rule set, but I've not actually had a game of it yet.
We've got all your scenery stuck in my house.
Yeah, that's it. And I've got all the gangs. I think it looks like a really good game for quick, short battles where, you maybe haven't got time for a couple of hours to play a game of Warhammer, but you might have an hour to roll some dice and play some Warcry. So yeah, desperate to have a game of that when the world comes back to normal.
The thing I like most of... Go on, Dave.
We had a bit of when it first came out. We had a few games, didn't we, Jay? And it was really fun.
Yeah, I like the way you roll your dice and assign them to abilities. Was it doubles, triples, quads? I really like that mechanic. It's really cool. It's just interesting. It's not just I think what I don't get on with Kill Team, which is like the 40k equivalent, it is just rolling dice like on a smaller scale to Warhammer 40,000 battles. Whereas Warcry does feel different. You've got the alternative activations, you've got the priority roll off that you do at the beginning, and then you're looking for your different dice combinations so you can activate abilities on different models. It feels good. It's not like that one.
I think what will really breathe some new life into it as well is if other factions get models, like we've seen the K-Knight Force. So if some more, non-Chaos factions get warbands, then I think a lot of people will be jumping on Warcry this year.
Yeah, I mean, we said that, didn't we, when it first came out, that, not everybody's a Chaos fan. So yeah, we've seen those elves, and of course the Lumineth just got rules recently in the White Dwarf as well. I think you can buy the packs as well, can't you, for like the Seraphon, the Caradrons and things, yeah.
I think a lot of them have sold out now, especially the first wave.
But the rules get compiled in the catalogue that comes out at the end of the year has all the rules in, so that's good if you do miss out on the cards.
Tome of Champions, I think it's called.
Yeah.
What's your top choice, Jay?
My top choice is it's a game I've been wanting to play now for what seems like an eternity. And that is a game of Age of Sigmar with the Lumineth Realm Lords. Come on, be up for pre-order next week.
Oh dear. I really hope you enjoy playing with them, Jay. And they don't come out and you're like, oh, stick them on eBay.
That would be devastating, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. I'd probably just pack in Warhammer, to be honest, at that point. This is my last podcast.
My top choice, you've both already mentioned, and that's Aeronautica Imperialis. If only on the back of how much I enjoyed X-Wing, because that it seems to share a lot of common ground with the X-Wing game mechanics. But obviously, like you touched upon, Matt, you've got stuff like velocity and how high, like your altitude and stuff, and the models look really nice.
A tip for you, Dave: yeah. Make sure you're flying higher than ground level.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the fact that you need enough movement to get through a maneuver, and if you don't, your plane can stall. I think that's a really cool mechanic.
I watched a battle report on YouTube the other day where the Orc player went quicker than he should have done or something. Like I think all planes have an option to fly slightly quicker, but you have to roll the dice.
You've got a maximum speed you can go at, which is how fast your engines will go. But obviously, if you then drop your altitude, you're going to pick up speed, but then your ship starts falling apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are ships doing flying around anyway?
Well, planes.
So yeah, in this example, this is like it was his main squad leader almost killed himself in turn 1 because he went too fast. A very orcish thing to do.
He didn't. He survived, and all the other Orc boys loved him. What a hero!
This is it. He painted his plane redder so he could go.
I'm either going to crash and burn or become a legend.
Awesome. That brings us to the end of our top 3 choices, but we still have the community ones to read out, so we'll move on to those next. As this latest episode nears its end, we do have time for the community top 3 picks. So I'm going to start us off over on Facebook. Brian Dennis, his third choice is Warcry. Hopefully he'll be playing this later in the year, same as you, Matt. His second choice is Warhammer Quest / Hero Quest. Never had a go at one of these. Would like to fit it in. I loved it when we played Warhammer Quest, and I would like us to pick up Blackstone again, because that was really good. And his top choice is Mordheim. Really wanted to play this. Hopefully there'll be a new version. Hopefully indeed. I think was it last week or the week before we discussed maybe we'll see a return of Mordheim when the Old World comes out?
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. Over on Twitter, Matt.
Yeah, so on Twitter, Pete Allison, Runebrush, his number 3 choice was Man O' War. It was just being phased out as he got into the hobby. I'd love to play Man O' War. We kind of saw it reimagined in Red Fleet, but it wasn't quite the same. I think there was something appealing about fleets of different ships for different races in the Warhammer world.
Yeah.
I'd love to play that game after we saw the Dwarf Ironclad with the dirigible that came out of it.
Yeah, that was really cool. Number 2, Blood Bowl. The first GW game he ever played, but only once. And Adeptus Titanicus, the Titans are in the post, though, to fix this. Excellent. The Noob Painter says Gorka Morka, Necromunda, and Epic / Space Marine. So, the original Epic set during the Horus Heresy. Matt Paints, number 1, Titanicus, ran about 40 demo games but never played it properly. And you know what? I wonder how that is for people who are at shows and stuff demoing the games but don't actually get to play it properly themselves. I wonder if that puts you off playing it. The Drowned Earth, I've not come across that one myself. And Kings of War, which is by Mantic, I think, isn't it?
This is the rank and file type, Warhammer fantasy replacement,
Fabius Fulgrim says number 3, Mordheim. Number 2, Epic, and number 1, Titanicus. Mousebait, Kill Team, got to play with hubby, still can't get him to play. Number 2, Necromunda, got the first round of books but haven't had the time. And Mordheim, wasn't in the hobby then, and really sadly missed it. This is how they envision Warhammer Fantasy. I really hope we see a new Mordheim from Forge World, maybe. Lord Andrew Dennett. Mordheim Witch Hunters Gang, Battlefleet Gothic Space Marines, and War Master Bretonnians. Yeah, I had the War Master book out the other day, and that had a lot of attention on Twitter. I think a lot of people do like that game. It was essentially epic with a bit of a Warhammer feel to it, wasn't it?
I did see a big High Elf War Master army on eBay not so long ago.
Did you? The Rising Ape says Battlefleet Gothic. Yes. Dreadfleet / Man of War and Mordheim is number 1. They were all released when they were not in the hobby. Chrissy, she says Adeptus Titanicus, Warcry, but is hoping to change that soon, and Battlefleet Gothic because tiny giant ships. Now, Chrissy's a bit of an Aeronautica fan because of the tiny planes. Yeah, tiny ships that if you scale them up would be like as big as a continent. That's a good tiny thing to have. Des Royne says Burrows and Badgers. Now, I think a friend of ours, Chris, has been painting up some figures for this. It's all kind of a skirmish game with animals.
Oh, was this the Tartan Hedgehog?
Yeah. Warhammer Fantasy Battle and Advanced Song of Blades and Heroes. No idea what that one is, sorry.
No, not sure about that one.
Kraken Doomcore, which is another great name. Adeptus Titanicus, Mordheim, and Space Marine / Epic. So if you don't know, before Epic came out, there was Space Marine, which it did what it said in the tin. It was Space Marines versus Space Marines. This is where the Horus Heresy came from because they had to invent a reason for a recycled sprue. So, yep, half the Space Marines went evil. That way we can have 2 factions in the box with 1 sprue. Genius idea. And yeah, it created the entire Horus Heresy range. Warbringer, Adeptus Titanicus, Warcry and Necromunda. JB Paints, Titanicus and Aeronautica. And Age of Sigmar, something they'll be collecting for 2 years, but don't know anyone that plays. They're planning on a little road trip to the Sparkly Unicorns when the world returns to normal. Well, JB Paints, give us a shout. I will absolutely give you a game of Age of Sigmar when I can. Yeah. Dave Bass, Battlefleet Gothic, Epic 40k and Dreadfleet. Chris Megan, Battlefleet Gothic, Adeptus Titanicus and Aeronautica Imperialis. Immortan Joe, Chaosium's Call of Cthulhu. So this is a role-playing game. I've got the book upstairs. It's really cool. Warhammer Fantasy and Kingdom Death Monster. Is this one that you've heard of, Jay?
Yeah, it is. It's quite a big board game, this one. My brother's actually got this one. So you're controlling a bunch of people who are starting like a village surrounded by these monsters, and you sort of take over individual characters, and they're born, they die, new characters are born and die, and it's quite an interesting. It's a big Kickstarter campaign, I believe.
Awesome, cool. And then I've got an honourable mention from Jem, who sent this in today. Top 3 games have yet to play: Necromunda, Aeronautica, and the campaign for North Africa, the Desert War 1940 to 1943. It's a game with the rules in 3 volumes. It requires 10 players, and 1 game takes 1,500 hours to play.
Whoa.
Wow.
I think it's one of those super hardcore, super accurate, super involved military games that will take your entire house, all your time, and all your friends.
Eesh. Yeah, that sounds intense.
It really does. I think I'll stick with me Warcry, to be fair.
Fantastic. There's some really good picks there. Mordheim, a lot of love for Mordheim.
There is a lot of love for Mordheim. I imagine Mordheim would sell like hotcakes if they redid it as well, especially with the quality of the current like Necromunda sculpts.
Yeah. Would you like to see Mordheim still saying fantasy, or would you like to see a more Age of Sigmar?
I think Mordheim would have to be fantasy, and then you could come out with a modular building with plastic tiles representing the cobbled stone floors, and do it exactly the same as the recent Necromunda box.
That's a good idea. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Do we have a top 3 for next week?
We do indeed. So, obviously, we're seeing a lot of lore progression, hopefully, on Saturday. So we want to know the top 3 progressions in the lore that you would like to see across any system.
Okay. That sounds good. If you would like to get your choices in early, you can do so via our social media links, which are given at the end of the podcast. And I think that wraps up this week's episode, guys. So, yeah, cool. We'll be back again next week. If you want to get in touch with us before then, obviously do so via social media, and we'll be speaking to you all again next week. Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to the Sprues and Brews podcast. If you like what you've been listening to, please do give us a share and a comment if you're listening via Apple Podcasts. For further content, please check out spruesandbrews.com, and you can contact us on Twitter @spruesandbrews or over on Facebook, facebook.com/spruesandbrews.